Hello, everybody. Before I get into it, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting every candidate and trying to make a complete panel here, because that's the way that democracy, it's the only way democracy can work. My name is Steve Cox. I'm an independent. I was born and raised in this district, and I hold allegiance to nobody but you, and to nothing but the truth and honesty. One of the greatest lies we're told is that wealth, in and of itself, is what makes our country great. But is it? As one example, we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the planet, and 20% of our children live in poverty. That's 16 million kids. I believe greatness is judged by how we treat our most vulnerable in a society. And by that metric, we are failing. Here are some other lies we're told. We can't afford universal health care in this country, or even to take care of our nation's veterans, but we need this $1.5 trillion fighter plane. The war on terrorism, like the war on drugs, is working. Gun laws keep us safe from gun violence. Cutting taxes for the wealthy creates jobs for the rest of us. The press is free, and the intelligence community is trustworthy. You might believe some of what I just said, but they're all lies. And probably the biggest lie of all is that we must rely on Democrats or Republicans, the people who cause the problems that we face as a nation, to fix them. No matter which party's in charge, the system makes life harder for the many in order to maintain the privilege of a few, and it must change.
Hello, my name is Ted Rusk. I'm originally from Indiana. I'm a little bit older than some of these guys, and I'm going to give you a little different perspective on things. I am a Democrat. I'm a Franklin Roosevelt Democrat. You guys need to Google that, some of you younger people. Because I'm going to tell you what Trump is. And Democrats don't want to hear this, but maybe some of the Republicans will know this. We're in the beginning stages of a revolution. It's going to be a peaceful one, it's going to use technology, and it's going to happen really quick. And I'm asking for this district to vote for me, because I don't hate Trump. That's what the Orange County Register said. If Martin's here tonight, he wrote the article, and I appreciate it. I don't hate Trump's ideas. Here's what I heard from him. Let's close the war down, and let's get along with the world. Is that a bad thing? He stole that from us Democrats. But the Democrats don't have time to talk about that stuff. They're talking about where a transsexual is going to take a lead. Guys, in an election year, that's not what you're talking about. There's people camped down in the river down here, in the riverbed, getting their dinner out of a dumpster tonight because we don't concentrate on the right stuff. And yeah, what both parties have done over the last 40 years, that riverbed is full of a 40-year experiment on free trade. Bring the Japanese imports in the 70s. In the 80s, to compete with those, we went to China to start building our products and bringing them back tariff-free. In the 90s, we couldn't get all the jobs shipped out, so we opened the border up. Those guys made it up to Indiana by 91. They bought a fake ID and a social security number that belongs to one of you guys, somebody with a Spanish name. That's what they're working under. And those, they're not legal. They may be very good people, but they have committed at least 2 crimes. One, stealing a social security number. Thank you.
Please, from the audience, I ask you to respect every single candidate up here. They have the right to answer every question and do their opening statement any way that they want, as long as they do not disparage any other candidate up here. So please, this is democracy. They are allowed to answer the questions, and if we, as citizens, have the right to choose to vote for them or not. That's our power. Please be respectful, act with grace and decorum. It's only for 2 hours. Mr. Phil Janowitz.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, hi everyone, I'm Phil Janowitz. Recognize a lot of you out here in the audience, but I see some new faces too, so that's great. I want to introduce myself to you. A little bit about me, teaching for many years at Cal State Fullerton, teaching chemistry. Now I'm teaching at Fullerton College, teaching chemistry, starting on Tuesday morning. Before that, went to Illinois for my PhD in chemistry, and MIT before that for neuroscience and chemistry. So yes, I am Dr. Phil, that's true. The big thing I thought of my entire life is I always wanted to teach. I always wanted to help people find their passions and pursue that passion, whatever that passion happened to be. And I thought better living through chemistry. That's what I was always told. And at Cal State Fullerton, so many of the students there weren't struggling with balancing equations. No. They were struggling with balancing their own lives. They're working 20, 30, 40 hours a week just to pay for school. They're struggling while they're there, and they're struggling afterwards to get a good paying job in the area after they graduate. I know, I'm on the phone, calling for references, writing them rec letters all the time to make sure that they're able to get a good job in the area, but it's so hard to come by. Such that my wife's working several part-time jobs right now, no benefits whatsoever, because who would want benefits? So this is what we're seeing in our district, and this is why we need to revitalize our area economically. That's why I'm running for Congress. That is why I decided to step aside from the classroom full-time to put my efforts into running for Congress, because education is incredibly important to help achieve upward mobility within our class. The best way for people to achieve their dreams is through education, and that's one of the big things I'm fighting for. You can learn more about that the rest of here tonight. Healthcare is very big for me. Healthcare is a right, period. I firmly believe that. We should go towards a Medicare for all type system. We need to have good paying jobs in the area. Those are things I'm fighting for. Talk to you more later tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming here tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. You know, my name is Gil Cisneros, and I'm a Democratic candidate for Congress. And I just want to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about me. My life has really been about service. You know, it started with my family. My grandfathers were World War II veterans. My dad was a Vietnam veteran. And I joined the Navy out of high school because for me at that time, it was the best opportunity that I had to move my life forward. But fortunately for me, I had met somebody, a chief petty officer, who saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself yet. And he recommended that I apply for this program that would lead to a college scholarship. Well, that program changed my life. It gave me opportunity through education that I never knew existed. So much so that when I had another life-changing moment, almost 8 years ago, when I won the California lottery, I knew the one thing that I wanted to do was to give kids that same opportunity through education that I had. You know, over the last several years, I've been very involved in Democratic politics. I've been an Obama appointee. I'm on the board of Michelle Obama, her Reach Higher campaign, and Better Make Room to get more kids in college. In fact, I have a board meeting next week that I have to go to Washington, D.C. for. I've been a member of the DNC Finance Committee. But when people started approaching me about running for Congress, I sat down with my wife, and we started to talk about the issues that were important to us, like education, health care, comprehensive immigration reform, and common sense gun legislation. Everything we have been fighting for, Donald Trump and the Republicans have been trying to take away from us. They have their hands in the pockets of the corporations and the special interest. So when I go to Washington, I'm going to let them all know. Times have changed. Ed Royce isn't here anymore. I'm going to represent the people of the 39th and the workers of America, and I look forward to your questions tonight, and thank you very much.
Women voters. Now remember, candidates, you have 1 minute only to respond. Our first question is, what do you think is the most important domestic issue facing the United States, and how will you address it?
Well, it is hard to pick out one to say it's the most important. But I would say that the most important issue of all the issues in the country is the fact that we have, for the first time, an administration supported not only by the president, but by Republicans in Congress, that is the most corrupt administration in American history. Everything that they do is for their own personal wealth, their own personal ego. They're not looking out for the mass of people. You can look at it in the tax bill. You can look at it at the people that they've attacked, the people that they've insulted. This is the wrong direction for America. We want a president and administration with the highest possible standards of decorum, the highest possible standards of ethics, and the highest possible putting the people's interest first. We don't see that now. All the specific issues come back to putting the people first. Don't worry about making money as president.
So I believe the most important domestic issue facing us is jobs. Creating good ones, keeping them here, and making sure people can afford a salary and they can own a home. They don't have to pay back their student debt. They don't have to worry about having health care. That's what's driving this. That's how we got Donald Trump. As a Democrat, we forgot to talk about the economy. We talked too much about what Trump's doing and not enough about people worrying about paying their bills. I spent the last few years working in clean energy as an executive. I saw the future of jobs, what we can do with solar and storage electric vehicles. But I also saw automation. I saw what those factories are looking like when robots are building our car. I saw what it looks like. We can all go to the grocery store and see our groceries check themselves out, and soon cars will be driving themselves. Jobs and creating good jobs and preserving jobs is the #1 issue in our country right now. With automation, our economy is changing. We need to make sure we're training people for the jobs of the future. And for folks who can see their jobs change, making sure they're getting that training to keep their family going forward.
The biggest crisis facing our country right now is a lack of faith in our government. And I think that that's shown by the turnout that we have today. Our government in the last year has truly failed us. We have Donald Trump in office, who's now using policies to penalize states that didn't vote for him. We have an administration that is rolling back policies that had helped to reduce the number of uninsured in our country. And we have a government right now that's currently under investigation for possible collusion. I am a local school board member. I understand that politics is always local, and I've seen how politics can work at the local level. As a school board member, as an OutSAC trustee, we work with the real issues that everyday people care about. But we have far too many politicians that have gone to DC and have forgotten their roots, have forgotten why they first started, what they're supposed to be fighting for. And as a result, they've been corrupted. They've been corrupted by the system. So we need to change that.
So I didn't really want to wade into this one, but realistically, the most pressing issue in America today is, in fact, immigration. The entire last election was based mostly on immigration, and it wasn't the fact that, we disagreed on a number of things. There were two sides of it. And realistically, as a country, you cannot survive if you are not a sovereign nation. If you do not follow the Constitution, then that is merely a piece of paper, and this entire country becomes unbound. The realistic situation is that we have walls between our neighbors, we have walls between our kids and our own homes. Why? For our own privacy. So that those people who want to come in ask us for permission to do so. This is an extremely important issue that has been boiling over for decades and is now coming to a head. So if you want to talk about the most important domestic issue, this is the one that's facing us next as a nation, and it is the one that's going to have the most lasting impact on America for the next century. Thank you.
It's economics. It's always economics. Most problems we face are either economic or socioeconomic. Healthcare is part of that economic problem. We have 18% of our GDP every year that goes to healthcare right now, and it's rising. And it will continue rising. So nearly 2 dimes out of every dollar everybody makes, every company makes, goes toward healthcare. Everywhere in Europe, it's 12% at the highest. That's where they have universal healthcare. Sometimes it's government run, sometimes it's government mandated. The economy needs to get fixed. Since the crash in 2008, the gains that have happened since then, 118% of those have gone to the top 10% in our society. It's going to continue going that way until somebody does something about it. And that's what we need to fix.
I'll tackle the immigration one right now. I want to tell the dreamers why they don't have their green cards, and as well as all the other illegals that have been here working hard and they ain't causing any trouble. The reason we don't have that is because Frank Perdue calls Nancy Pelosi and he says, Frank Perdue's the largest farmer in America, runs a lot of turkey plants. He calls those guys and he says, I need more cheap labor out here in the Midwest. And that's why that border's open. We'll get your green cards. You elect me, I'll get your green cards next year on the first week I'm in Washington, because I'm going to sit down with Trump and I'm going to tell him, hey, he says seal the border and kick everybody out. He's just a New York businessman. That's his starting point. He will give us green cards for probably 80 to 90% of the people. We need to kick out the trash, the criminals and all that. But let's get this thing, seal the border, and get these kids their green cards. They've been working on it 32 years, the DNC. And the DNC will tell you they're really working, but they ain't.
You need to get on the
Please, ladies and gentlemen, it is not acceptable.
It's not It's got to stop. There's no way to represent District 39
Ladies and gentlemen, settle down.
When did I mention race? All right.
Sir, please have a seat.
Shame on you.
Ladies-
Shame on you. Real racist. Against Mexicans. Everyone needs to listen. Do not allow this to continue. America can never be great unless you address this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
No, do not allow this to
Ladies and gentlemen, please. I'm not asking for much from you. You're not running for office. These gentlemen up here have the courage to do this. Please behave yourselves. Please behave yourselves.
Most important domestic issue in the country? All right. My teacher, listen. All right. The most important thing facing our country is the economy. Just as Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. When we have good paying jobs and people are able to cover their basic needs, whether that's good education, whether that's good health care, whether that's housing, when you're able to cover the basic needs, then you're able to worry about other things. So really when it comes to our biggest issue, it's getting our economy going, and getting our economy going not just to have more jobs, because yes, we have low unemployment, that is correct, but wages have not recovered since the Great Recession. We have not seen the wages recover at all, and we've seen healthcare costs, we've seen education costs outpace inflation. So we need to get our economy going by not only having more supply, better wages for our workers, but also decreasing the demand on things like healthcare costs and education costs.
For me, sorry the mic was off. For me, it all starts with education. Education is the best way out of poverty. The more educated you are, the less we spend on you as a society on health care. Education leads to better jobs, which leads to you spending more money in the economy. 92% of the jobs that are being created today require you to have some college or more. We have to go out and we have to fix our system to make sure that we are educating our students and we are providing them with pipelines, whether they want to go to college or they want to go learn a trade, but pipelines so they can go and build careers for themselves. Sorry, I forgot my thought, but education is really where it all begins and ends, and I will always support education. Thank you.
Maybe your volunteers can't hear you with that, so they would like you to share that microphone and stand if that's all right. Or you guys want to do it?
How about you share this one?
Okay, we've got a second question, and then it's also about Stockton. And we are going to start. Oh, yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. Lost control. Our second question is also a little bit about immigration. And we're going to start with Sam Jamal. what do we do about illegal immigration and the issues with DACA? We're looking for specifics from you.
Well, we saw tonight, immigration is a tough issue that exudes a lot of passion. I think what we need to do is actually bring everyone together and look at a comprehensive solution to immigration reform. We need to make sure there's a path to citizenship for folks that have worked here for a long time, laid roots in this country, and are part of the fabric of our community. We need to make sure employers can't skirt the rules and abuse their workers or just play by a different set of rules. We also need to focus on making sure that we're knowing who's in and who's out and making sure our visa programs work because, for example, 75% of our farm workers in this country are undocumented. That's a reality. And so we need to make sure when we talk about immigration, it's about the economy. It's about making sure we have the workers to help build our economy, but then also it's all about our culture. We got to make sure people come together. And so as you're a congressman, I'll hold town halls on the issue. I'll let folks come. Let's scream. Let's go out and let's figure it out. Let's find ways to bring us together because immigrants have contributed so much to our country. We can't let this issue divide us.
This is a land of immigration. But at any one point in time, I think all of us who are here now could probably point to an era when our people weren't allowed, whether it was the Chinese Exclusion Act, limitations on Eastern Europeans coming over, the Sino-Japanese-American Treaty that limited the Japanese. So while we are a land of immigration, we have to recognize that we didn't all start off on equal footing. It was easier for some to get here than others. But America is still a land of opportunity that everyone wants to arrive at. And we can't just shut off our doors, because that's what makes America great, the fact that so many people, the best and brightest, want to come here and work. There are jobs here that other Americans don't want to do. We need a guest worker program to make it possible so that those jobs get done. And for the DACA students who were brought here as children, who had no choice, they're some of the best contributing students at Mount San Antonio College. I know them. We can't just send them back. We need a comprehensive immigration solution that recognizes our identity as a land of immigrants and a land of opportunity.
Well, I'll go ahead and take it. So basically, we need to decide. We need to decide what we want to do as a country. And the reality is, we're not bringing in the best and brightest anymore. In fact, most of the PhD students, or many, that come to this country to learn, end up leaving this country for better opportunities in other countries. And that's becoming a very major issue in America. The reality is, there is a system in place that's broken. And realistically, there's got to be a compromise that's reached, otherwise we will never have a solution because there are two sides that are polar opposites. My personal opinion, chain migration needs to end, so do lottery visas. Want to come to this country, Americans should choose who comes and who doesn't, and they can choose to do it on a merit-based system, which it should be in the first place. Secondly, for DACA recipients, if they do remain in this country, if Congress decides that that is the way they will go, there have to be certain fixes in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again. That is the crossroads that we're at, and that is our next biggest issue that's facing us as a nation.
Okay, as America, we have core values. It's right in our national anthem. It's the land of the free and the home of the brave, right? We can't be the land of the free or the home of the brave if we cut off our borders for fear of immigrants. That doesn't work. I want a nation of free people, people that are free to do what they want, that are free to, and coming from another country, if there was an easy legal way for them to do it, I'm confident most would. But to come from Mexico or somewhere south, it is nearly impossible with like just a high school diploma or something like that to do it legally. We need to make it easier, we need to make it cheaper so that we can document them when they come in, but let people come and go as they please. That's what a free country would do.
Okay, starting with.
Well, what you just saw there is what the DNC has done to a lot of people. They've poisoned their minds and their hearts. I just told the kid I was going to get your green cards next year. I said we're going to have to kick out the criminal elements, and then we're going to have to seal the border. What is wrong with that, people? Treat the Mexicans the same as you treat the Chinese and the Koreans and the Filipinos. They sit down for an interview, and then we let them in. And this is what the DNC tactics, they probably paid that kid to come in here and badmouth me. But I'm telling you, green cards next year. If you think I'm a racist, look on my website, tedrusk.com. I've got reparations for Native Americans and African Americans. Nobody's talking about that. In the war in Afghanistan, 16 years. Come on, this is Bernie Sanders' ideas, and this kid's calling me a racist because I'm a white guy with a southern accent and I'm in my 50s. That's not right, guys. This party's tearing us apart. Race by race, sex by sex, gender.
I can assure you Jose was not paid. So, the first thing that we need to do is have comprehensive immigration reform. Yes, we've heard these words a lot, but what does that actually mean? It means reforming our legal immigration system and providing a pathway to citizenship for those who have come here through no fault of their own. So having a pathway to citizenship for those DACA recipients now and those on TPS. That's what we need to do to be sure that already those on DACA and TPS are contributing well to our society. They already are part of a government program. We know who they are. They're not contributing to crime. Therefore, having a pathway to citizenship for that is something that we need to have. Also, at teaching at Cal State Fullerton, I didn't know who was AB 540. I had no idea. I just knew the students wanted a good education. And when I hired my postdoc, who was on an H-1B, we need to make sure that people on an H-1B visa are able to have a pathway to citizenship as well. She was there for 7 years for that, so let's do that.
I will always support a pathway to citizenship and comprehensive immigration reform, period. We need to honor the work that the immigrants do that come to this country, the contribution that they make, not only to our culture, but to our economy. The Dreamers were brought here through no fault of their own, no choice of their own. Brought here by their families just to make a better life for themselves, to take advantage of opportunity. And they want to contribute here. This is the home, the only home that they've known. And they want to go and they want to contribute and make a better life for themselves and for their families and do what they can to just live a better life. You know, what's so wrong with that? TPS is something that we also need to protect. The president has lifted TPS for the El Salvadorians to send them back to a civil war, a culture of violence that's still going on over there, where their lives are going to be in danger. Where's the justice in that? We need to find a path to citizenship for all immigrants. It shouldn't be so hard to try and come into this country. This is what this country was built on, immigrants.
This attack on immigration is not what made this country great. As many people have said, all over the place, I'm the grandson of Polish, Jewish trash. Not the best and brightest. People who came here with nothing. The second generation did well. I'm the next generation after that with my brother. And one of my brothers who passed away. Professors, business people. The attack on immigration betrays the values of the country. We should be able to develop a comprehensive, balanced immigration policy that allows immigrants to come in. This is the richest country in the world. We have 325 million people. We can make room for some immigrants and refugees who are escaping poverty and persecution around the world. That's what built the country, and we need to continue to build to remain the strongest, richest, most desirable country in the world.
This question is for Mr. Chen. It is on congressional accountability. What actions would you recommend to return Congress to its constitutional role of openly debating laws?
Well, there are a lot of things I'd actually like to do with Congress. Number one, we need actually more Congress members. Up until 100 years ago, the number of congressional seats expanded with our population. But at a certain point in time, they said, we're going to stop it at 435. And what did that do? It made it harder for the average citizen to actually launch a campaign to unseat an unpopular incumbent. Because every year, the population increases. Every year, it gets harder. We need to make some fundamental changes. I would also support term limits for Congress. And extending the term of Congress to 4 years, so that you're not just legislating 1 year and fundraising for another year. It doesn't make sense. In the state of California, we have 4-year terms, and it makes much more sense. These are big asks, but I think fundamentally, they will make our Congress much more responsive to us.
Don't pay them. If they're not doing their job, they shouldn't receive any money. This shutdown was a perfect example of that. They're out there pretending to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, while in fact, they're holding either the economy, the country, in this case it was the Democrats, several years ago it was the Republicans. But the point is, the American people suffer on both times. So if they're not going to do their job, then don't pay them. The second one, I would eliminate the filibuster. That's just one party's way of holding hostage an entire country for their gain. I think if you have a majority, you should be able to vote the majority. That's how democracy works. Second of all, I agree with term limits. You can't be there 30 years and expect to be doing the job the same way with the same veracity you did it when you first got elected. You have to be there for a certain amount of time, do your job, and then let the next person, the next generation come in and take that leadership role and continue that work. And lastly, there's no actual legal way to recall congressmen, so
Thank you.
that might be a fix.
Accountability is the biggest thing we need in our government. It's a representative democracy. We need people who respond to the people. We need to represent the people. That means you can't be taking corporate donations, PAC money, things like that. You need to refuse that stuff. And voters need to refuse to vote for people who take that sort of thing. Myself, my plan is I want to base congressional pay on the median wage of the district they represent. So if they get a raise, they want a raise, they got to get a raise for everybody else in their district. And in order to do that, and because I'm not a hypocrite, when I win, and I will, whether it's this time, next time, I'm going to donate my pay above the median wage back to the district in the form of giving it to teachers to take care of their supplies and things like that, because it's asinine that they would have to pay for any of that stuff. It's like asking firefighters to pay for the water they use. It doesn't make sense. So I'm going to donate $94,000 a year at current rate back to teachers in my district.
Yeah, I'm kind of a J on this. If you read the Constitution, the very beginning of it, it lays out how many representatives we should have. One for every 30,000 was the original plan. It went up to one to every 50,000. I think there was an amendment proposed for one for every 60,000. I'm not saying we got to go down to 50, but we shouldn't be doing 720,000. I guarantee you that. We should be representing about somewhere between 50 and 100,000 people. Congressmen should be using the VA system for their health care, not some Cadillac plan they made for themselves. Yeah, we should be able to recall them. We need to, one good thing California has that none of the other states have much of is the option to vote directly on the issues. I love that. I'd like to see a national system like that so we can hold our congressmen accountable. They will be committed to getting a hold of their constituents and seeing how they feel about each issue.
Would you repeat the question, please?
What is the role of Congress? Oops. What actions would you recommend to return Congress to its constitutional role of openly debating law?
So to make sure that Congress is actually openly debating laws, we need to stop having a lot of these conversations in secret. We need to have them public. When you're actually discussing laws, since it is public, it should be public. That just makes sense. So one thing that we need to do is bring that accountability and transparency back into government, because that has gone away regardless of the party. That has gone away for a long time. So I fully believe that we should have many of those conversations public.
You know, the thing that we can do to make sure we bring back accountability and laws are openly debated is more transparency on the Hill. Republican Health Care Act, passed in secret in the House of Representatives. Tax bill, passed in secret, no debate on either bill. We need to pass legislation to ensure that before any bill passes through Congress, that it goes and it is debated on the floor and held up to debate so that everybody has some time to kind of weigh in on what the issues are. With this tax bill that was just recently passed, nobody even knew what was in it. Members were voting on a bill that they had no idea was in the bill, or anything that was in the bill. And we cannot allow that. We need to pass legislation to make sure that there is a reading period so everybody can go over the bill before It is looked at, and then it is brought up for debate before it is voted for on the floor.
I think there are 2 or 3 quick things we can do to make Congress more accountable. The first thing we have to do is eliminate gerrymandering. We have dozens of congresspeople who do not represent an actual district. It's a district that's been drawn for partisan purposes, Democratic and Republican. It needs to be outlawed. Second of all, and most important, we have to get the big money out of congressional races and out of politics. You can immediately pass a rule that any congressman who serves on a committee cannot take money from any organization that has business in front of that committee. That will help get a lot of money out of politics. And third of all, in addition to transparency, which of course we all accept and believe in, we need to reform the rules by which Congress operates, including more transparency. But they shouldn't be allowed to add amendments to bills that have nothing to do with the basic purpose of that bill. So we can have a whole series of amended rules which will make Congress more efficient, more effective, and Congress has to do that themselves, and we have to hold Congressmen accountable to pass those.
Thank you.
So let's start with a little audience interaction. Raise your hand if you're a millionaire in the crowd. No one. But if this were Congress, 50% of you, one guy's got millionaire now. We should talk after. If this were Congress, 50% of you would be millionaires. That's part of the problem. Congress doesn't reflect the rest of us anymore. I was a chief of staff in Congress and I worked in the U.S. Senate. I left there in disgust because I knew they forgot about my neighbors, they forgot about my family. People were more concerned with what's up and what's down in Politico, MSNBC, or Fox News, and not concerned about what we're all going through. So number one, we need new people up there. That's how you first start to reform it. Number two, I agree, we need term limits. You can't be up there forever. You lose touch with reality. And then number three, no budget, no vote. Congress does not pass budgets anymore. And that's how we get this zigzag of when we prioritize education or jobs or health care that switches depending on which party's in power. So we need new people and new rules.
All right, the next question will start with Mr. Sariaga. And this is on Congress's international role. What is the role of Congress with threats from the nations such as North Korea and Iran?
Well, Congress's role is to create policy and legislation here in America, and if need, to declare war. But that's why we have a State Department. That's why we have a president. That's why we have professional diplomats that are out there working on our behalf and on our interests. So realistically, Congress does not get to play a very active role in deciding who do we go to war with, who we don't, in the sense that, you know, they have the final vote, but it's not their privy to actually go in and create that. And I think that's what we need to remember here in America, is that every branch has a role. And it seems like today, every branch is crossing on the other branch's role. We have the judicial system making laws. We have presidents and former presidents making laws that they shouldn't be making, or nor do they have the power to make. And then we have Congress that's not working for the people anymore. So what really needs to happen is a fundamental understanding of what the roles of our government are. And I think we're losing that more and more with each passing year and some of the laws that are being passed.
I understand some of this isn't going to be very popular to hear, but it's a historical fact. We overthrew the Shah in Iran in the 1950s. That led to all the problems we're having in Iran, for example. We supported the Mujahideen against the Russians in Afghanistan, which, you know, one thing after another, 9/11 happens, right? We are always in everybody else's business and it never works. It doesn't work because the only way that anybody can replace their government and actually have it work is if the people themselves of that place do it. You can't come in and do it by proxy. It doesn't work. We need to get out of everybody else's business. We need to bring our people back home, and we need to worry about here, not everywhere else.
Yeah, I think we're about on the same page there. I think we need to get out of this war in Afghanistan. President Trump ran on that. He ran on let's get along in the world, close some of those bases down in Germany, Japan, and Korea, cut them back. They can protect themselves. Make friends with countries. You know, you got to separate Trump's bad personality from what he actually said, because what he said was peaceful world. And now he's taking a different approach when he's in there, but now the Koreas are talking. You notice that? And Democrats, if we don't change our ways, Trump's got another 4 years coming, I'm telling you. If you don't start dealing, if these kids are still looking, these dreamers still looking for their green cards 3 years from now, they're going to start going. Gutierrez up in Chicago, American-born, a Latin guy up in Chicago, 4 hours from where I was raised, he's finally saying, we got to cut a deal. And they're starting to come out.
So when it comes to international relations, the State Department does most of that work. Now, the role of Congress is to provide those checks and balances on what the State Department is doing, whether it's ratifying treaties, whether it's having a plan for the Iran deal, for example, or what's going on in DMZ and in Korea. That's the role of Congress there. The other thing that Congress can really do when it comes to international relations is supporting our troops. That's one of the biggest things we can do to make sure that our troops have the necessary body armor that they need. Should they, for whatever reason, be sent into war? Hopefully not. But if they were, that they're able to be taken care of, that they have benefits afterwards after they serve. We have a backlog in the VA for a long, long time. For people who serve our country, they deserve to be treated with that respect. So it's the role of Congress as well to make sure that our veterans are treated with the respect that they deserve.
You know, we have a president who believes in diplomacy by tweet. That is no way to run a foreign policy. Congress's job is one of oversight, to make sure that the executive branch is doing their job. And like Phil said, right, to fully fund the military so that it's capable to complete its mission. The other thing that Congress needs to do is fully fund the State Department so that it can conduct foreign diplomacy throughout the world. And right now, the president is not doing that. He is taking an approach of one of isolationism, trying to pull away. He's pulled out of the Paris Accords. He's pulling away everywhere else in the world. He wants to pull out of the the Iranian nuclear deal. And that is no way to conduct foreign policy. We need to be a leader out there. Congress needs to provide that oversight to make sure that the president is doing his job and keeping the nation safe, and that the State Department is fully funded so that it can do its job.
And what can Congress do? Congress has two very specific constitutional responsibilities with respect to foreign affairs. One is they have the only power to declare war, but they gave that power up to the executive branch a few decades ago, and they need to take it back. We've had Democratic and Republican presidents basically go to war by other names, and Congress and the Senate have not reestablished their constitutional priority to decide when we go to war. We have to revise the use of force bill that gave the president unilateral action to go to war. And the second constitutional responsibility that Congress has is funding. Only Congress can pass a funding bill. So Congress can use the power of the purse to decide which foreign policy initiative to support the troops, but maybe there's another foreign policy initiative that we don't want to support. So if Congress would live up to its constitutional responsibilities, that would be the appropriate role.
So this issue really comes down to kind of the critical juncture we're in right now. We need someone ready to do the job on day one, because we're at the brink of war right now with North Korea, and our Iran deal is unstable. I had top secret clearance for the Obama administration, the Commerce Department. I worked on export controls and sanctions, worked with the White House National Security Council, the Defense Department, which handles a lot of our foreign affairs actually, and the State Department. What we need right now from Congress is oversight and accountability for the Trump administration to make sure they're not reckless. There's a lot at risk right now with those tweets. Our troops are in serious danger. And so we need folks to go up there and hold the Trump administration accountable, make sure our budgets are in place so we don't leave our troops without armor, and then make sure we're asking tough questions. Because we can't go to another war just because Trump tweeted at someone. But more so, we have to use the other tools at our disposal. Diplomacy, using America's role as a global leader to bring countries together to find solutions. We also are necessary to use sanctions to penalize bad actors. But we can't just go to war and bank on Trump.
So this past weekend, I participated in my monthly Navy drill, and I found out that one of my fellow officers was getting mobilized to Djibouti. So many of you probably don't know where Djibouti is. But there are conflicts that are happening around the world right now where our service members are being sent that we don't know about, that Congress doesn't talk about. But the fact is, Congress has been complicit. They have punted. They've punted the authorization of use of military force to the president. And right now we're engaging in conflicts based on AUMFs that were passed in 2001 and 2002. And Congress is perfectly happy with doing that because they don't have to take a tough vote. And the president is perfectly happy with that, Democrat or Republican, because they can proceed as they want. That needs to change. Congress needs to own up for its responsibility for use of force. And Congress needs to take a look at what's happening in the State Department. 60% of our top positions are left unfilled. Military action is the last resort, diplomacy is the first, and right now, our Congress is failing us.
Mr. Cox.
My turn.
Next question. This district, like the state of the nation, contains a very diverse population of languages, ethnicities, religions, etc. What have you done to help these groups, especially the underprivileged, underrepresented ones, that will be included in your potential constituency?
Personally, I haven't done much except for advocate for the rights of people on various levels. I don't care where anybody comes from. I don't care what color their skin is. I don't care what color their eyes are. I don't care. People are people. People want some very basic things. People want to know that believe that they're safe. People want to know that they're appreciated in their community and that they're a part of it and that they're welcome. The basics of what makes a human being is the same regardless of where you're from. And everybody here that comes with a cultural difference of any sort only adds to the strength of this country. I would support allowing anybody to come as long as they do it through legal means, but once we make those legal means easy and cheap, that's the point. Get them documented, get them here, and let them do what they want. Freedom is what it's about.
Well, again, for kids of all races, all genders, and all sexual identities, you guys are screwed. You notice now they said the life expectancy is going down in America. Your guys are going to borrow more money to get a worthless degree to go out and grind ice at Starbucks for 12 bucks an hour. You should be pissed. All the young people should be. You're waiting 32 years for your paperwork. I'll get it for you next year. This flat wages we've had for 25 years, ask any college professor in economics, they'll tell you. It's a flood of people willing to work cheaper that brings the wages down or keeps them flat. So these kids, you guys need to really work on changing this country. And I'm the only one's going to promise you I'll get your green cards next year if you're dreamers. And the other illegals that are not just dreamers.
This is something I've been working on my entire career, actually. When I first got to Cal State Fullerton in 2010, my first day there, I said, what's the biggest issue we have in chemistry? They said, closing the achievement gap for underrepresented minority students. I said, all right, let's do it. There's a program that we can do that called the Supplemental Instruction Program. It's a mentorship program that we can use to actually close that gap. They said, well, you're young, you're new, wait 15 years, you'll be able to take care of it then. So I started that day to take care of that issue. I had no budget, no supplies. I found a student, a vocal performance major who wanted to go to med school, Elizabeth Schumann, to help me out with that. And in 4 years, we actually institutionalized the program with baseline funding. And we actually closed the achievement gap for underrepresented minority students and for transfer students. Now, this program was a success not just at Cal State Fullerton, but I spent 3 years going up and down the state of California to help them with their own supplemental instruction program. So this is something I've been doing my entire career right here in this district, and will continue to do that for years to come.
I was one of those kids from an underserved community that I never even imagined was possible. So I went on, I got a bachelor's degree, I got an MBA, and I went on later to get another master's degree in urban education policy from Brown University. 8 years ago, my wife and I started a foundation where we help kids from underserved communities and give them that same opportunity that I had. We give them college scholarships. We support college access programs and founded college access programs to work with these kids who just really are here working hard, just trying to make a better life for themselves and trying to get ahead. And a lot of times, all they really need is the information. And that's what we provide them. We provide them with the information that they need, the support that they need. And I'm proud to say that right now we have over 50 kids across the country that are on one of our scholarships. Kids of all color, all races. And we're very proud of the work that we've done, and we will continue to do that work.
Well, my wife and I have been very active in charities here in Orange County, particularly with the Rotary Club. We've been active in Rotary for over 30 years, both on the East Coast and here. And we've also been active in charities like Huntington's disease, HD care, it's called. But there's a much more important issue here. I've spent the last few months trying to meet with as many local officials as I can to find out from them what are the very local issues that kids face or that minorities in their district face. Because these problems are really local. What we have to avoid is having a congressman or a congressperson who loses touch with the local district. The main way to help the children and the other minorities in this district is to make sure that you have a congressman for the first time in 24 years who listens to what's going on in the district, who doesn't live in a bubble, and maintains very close working relationship with the assembly people, the mayors, the city councils, because the issues are not going to be the same in Diamond Bar as they are in Fullerton or all the rest of the towns in this district. I think that's the main focus we have to have, is to stay in touch.
So I wish you all can see the beautiful mosaic that we see up here. We have folks from all types of backgrounds up here, and that's the 39th district. This is a community where you can eat food from anywhere in the world. You can hear almost any language in the world, and it's beautiful. And I say that, like, I'm the son of immigrant parents. I have a biracial background. There's not one table that I can sit at easy. I'm never going to be Latino enough for some folks. I'm never going to be Arab enough for some folks. But I love this community, and that's what a lot of our folks are. Because what unites us is the same goals and aspirations that we all have. You want your kid to have a good school. You want to make sure if your relative gets sick, that they get the best care in the world. And you want to know that your neighbor's doing okay and can still dream just as big as you. That's what this community's always been about. That's the beauty of the 39th district, and that's the beauty of my childhood. It was always, when I came back, just seeing it's changed even more, but then also seeing its politics try to slice and dice us, I know we're better than that.
Representing the underrepresented is the reason why I got involved in politics in the first place. And as an elected leader in this community, I fought to protect the rights of the minorities. And I'm proud to say that I'm endorsed by the Stonewall Democratic Club. I'm proud to say that I fought against Proposition 8 when it was being pushed out into the community, into the Chinese community. I'm proud to say that as a Mount SAC trustee, we immediately issued a resolution saying that we would protect our DACA students. I'm proud to say that we brought back bilingual education in Chinese and in Spanish in Hacienda La Puente Unified School District. I'm proud to say that I am here for everyone, and we need a congressman that can communicate and that can make people feel comfortable with them. Yo voy a ser un electado para toda la gente aquí. Cualquier persona que quiere ser un parte de mi oficina, yo voy a apoyar a ellos. 我一定会帮所有的人在我们这个区，我会代表他们。如果你给我这个机会。This community is 35% Hispanic, 30% Asian. We need a congressperson who can represent all of us. Thank you.
I think the equation is pretty simple. You treat them as an American. Yo puedo hablar español, I also hablar romana, I can speak English, but if we continue to look at skin color and ethnicity, then we will continue to be a divided nation. I think that's the biggest problem in America today. Instead of coming together as Americans and supporting each other, we look at identity politics, and I hate and loathe identity politics. I believe we can come together as a nation, but we got to begin looking past questions such as, well, what do you do about this race? What do you do about that race? As a police officer, I treated everyone with dignity, even parolees that sought to do me harm. As a council member, I attended to everybody's needs without looking at who they were, where they come from, or what they can do for me. And that's what we need to do as Americans. If we truly want to come together as a nation, we need to get past this identity politics, and we need to start supporting each other as Americans.
And it's on climate change. What is your position in regards to the health of our environment and climate change?
Well, I'm a little bit different. I'm not a climate change denier, but I will tell you, I don't like both parties fearmonger is on everything. If you watch, there's a special done by the History Channel with a lot of PhD, Stanford and people like this. It's called The Last Little Big Ice Age, I believe. And it talks about how the climate changed. We had a warming time in the 900 to 1300, and it changed pretty abruptly to a colder time. When our founding fathers were fighting those wars, they were just colder than hell. It warmed up about 1850, and that's what period we're in. Let's move toward windmills, solar panels, water power, and all that. But let's just don't jump in and let's don't worry ourselves to death over it. We're here. There's 7 billion people on this earth. Curb the population growth would be the first place to start. Because if the population was declining, we wouldn't be arguing about this.
Climate change is an existential threat to our planet. As a PhD chemist and as a chemistry professor, I understand this innately. I've been studying this for years. The hottest year on record was 2017. Second hottest, 2016. Third hottest, 2015. We've seen this get worse and worse and worse, and we need to do something about it. Now, we can do something about that while still having good-paying green jobs. Absolutely. We don't have to kick our economy to the curb to be good environmentalists. So yes, climate change is real. I can't believe as a scientist I actually have to say that climate change is real, but yes, climate change is real. And it is affecting all of us around the globe. So we need to do something about this, and we can do that while still having good paying jobs for our men and women.
Growing up in Southern California as a kid, I remember going outside and you would look up in the skyline and all you would see was smog. Right? But we don't have that anymore. And why we don't have that is because we've instructed strict regulations here in California to reduce our carbon footprint. The Republicans and Donald Trump are going after our clean water. They're going after our clean air. The oil companies are putting money in their pockets so they can drill on our shores, our coast again. I pledge that I will not take any oil money. The thing that we know that I am most proud of right here in California is that we have shown by example that you can be tough on the environment and protect the environment and at the same time grow your economy. We have the 6th largest economy in the world. And that's the example that I want to take to Washington. Climate change is real. And you don't need to be a chemistry professor to understand that.
But we do need to have a debate on climate change. But that debate should not be whether it exists or whether it's man-made. The debate is, what do you do about it? It is absolutely the most serious long-term threat to this country and to the world. There is not a single respectable climate scientist. When you hear about the reports in the paper, the Intergovernmental Panel, it's 44,000 climate scientists around the world signing an agreement, signing a paper that says, yes, climate change is real, and it's caused by human activity, release of carbon and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The question before us is what to do about it. Do we have a carbon tax, a cap and trade program? We need to move towards green energy, of course, many other things that we have to do. But that's what the debate needs to be. We need to sit around the table, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and say, this is a major threat. What are we going to do about it?
So I believe climate change isn't just a long-term threat, it's a threat today. We see it in the wildfires just this year, all over the news. We've seen it in the drought. It went away for a period of time, but it's coming back. We need to start working on how we're going to adapt to climate change, but also we need to figure out how we're going to move ahead and lead in response to climate change. And for me, I spent the past couple of years working at Solar City and Tesla. I saw us create over 200,000 jobs across the country in the solar industry. The #1 manufacturer in the state of California is Tesla. They don't talk about it enough, but California is our #1 manufacturers in clean energy. We're creating real jobs here and building the next economy. The conversation around climate change, though, isn't about the technology, it is about the science. We have the technology, the science is here, it's real. It's about the politics. And it's about having people who bring folks together to find solutions. And that's what I did when I was working for Solar City. I'd worked with the Christian Coalition, National Security folks, the Sierra Club, NAACP, all around the conversation of solar benefits everyone and how do we move forward with 100% clean energy.
climate change is real, and if Donald Trump doesn't believe it, he needs to talk to his own generals, who he seems to respect quite a bit. The military has said that climate change is one of the biggest military threats we face, because when people can't plant crops, when they have a drought, when they can't get water, they need to move. They need to migrate. And so many of the conflicts that we face today are rooted in climate change, in the inability of people to live in the countries that they originally were from, and they're seeking other places, and that's creating conflict, which we inevitably get involved in. And we can see the impact right here in California with the wildfires, and with the escalating record temperatures that are happening every single year, and the mudslides that are happening. Absolutely, climate change is real. And we as Congress members can do something about it. We can make sure the EPA is doing its job. We can fight back against Trump, who just raised tariffs on solar panels by 30%. Now, the biggest cost of solar panels is actually the labor. It's not the panels. So he's now crippling the solar industry, the green industry. Green jobs are jobs we can't outsource. So that's why I support a green economy.
So what we've done in California is we've taken these drastic measures to curb our emission and our pollution, and what we've created actually is a new class of billionaires. I call them green billionaires. So we took the oil industry, replaced it with green energy, but when you wake up, you still see the smog in California. And a lot of those wildfires, in fact, are because of us. We went out and we started trying to reforest. We planted trees, and then all of a sudden, and this was from Southern California Edison, at their hydro plant, Big Creek. They were planting trees too close together, and that's what was causing these massive wildfires, where before there was a lot of distance between them, and it's a natural process. The problem I have is we've gone to an extreme that doesn't help anybody. In fact, we're trading our jobs and our livelihoods for this idea that the world is going to end soon. It's not. And the reality is there is moderation, there is a happy medium, but we can't pull completely to one side and neglect the other. And as long as agencies continue to doctor reports, then there's going to be no integrity in the entire process.
Climate change is contributed to by man. CO2, methane, they retain more heat in our atmosphere. That's just science. I mean, that's honestly, they could reproduce it in labs, and they have. The problem is, when it comes to policy, most of the things that people keep pushing in terms of policy to combat it here disproportionately affect the middle class and the poor, because it's about making, bringing in new cars and stuff. Well, guess what? Who can afford a Tesla if you're middle class? Can you afford a $100,000 electric vehicle? No. That's the issue. The issue is we need to come up with solutions that are palatable and even attainable on every level of our economy. And until we do that, we're not going to be able to fight it.
Okay, the next question, we're going to start with you, Phil. And it's on gun control. What, if any, gun control should Congress enact, and what would you support?
This is just common sense. There's common sense gun violence prevention legislation that can be done that's supported by the majority of NRA members. Universal background checks. That's supported by over 70% of NRA members. By closing the gun show loophole. By closing loopholes in the online sales. By banning bump stocks. These are things that I would definitely be supporting. These are specific things I would be supporting to curb gun violence within our country. We've had 11 shootings already this year, and it's what, the 24th of January? That's a problem. 11 out in 24 days? We need to do something about this, and we need to do something now.
Yes, there was just another shooting yesterday in Kentucky. One of the endorsements I'm most proud of is from the Giffords campaign. Gabby Giffords and Mark Kelly have endorsed me, and I am very proud that, and I stand by with them for make sure that we pass common sense gun legislation. Nobody who's been convicted of domestic violence should be able to own a gun. If universal background checks, it's something that 80% of the nation, the people that they want. Bump stocks need to be banned. Silencers need to be banned. These are all things that we all agree on, but the NRA and the gun manufacturers keep preventing us from happening because they keep filling the pockets of the Republicans with their donations and their monies. That needs to end. That's why I have pledged not to take any PAC money. And again, I am proud to have the endorsement of the Giffords because when I get to Washington, I'm going to continue to advocate for common sense gun legislation.
Well, you'll hear a lot of agreement up here on gun control, gun safety. I support the gun safety measures that other people have mentioned. Universal background checks, closing the boyfriend loophole, domestic violence, getting rid of high-capacity magazines, banning the sale of assault weapons. But let's remember that the problem is still money in politics. It's a small group of people who lobby for what they want. They spend billions of dollars, and Congress is allowed to take that money. And then they vote the way the money tells them to vote. So the way we're going to get the laws that we want, this is a case where the majority of Americans support most of these measures, and we still can't pass them. Sometimes 80% approve of a measure and Congress doesn't pass it. It comes back to taking measures to get money out of Congress and out of politics. Then we can pass common sense gun regulation.
So I think Andy and Gil hit it right in the head. This is a campaign finance issue. I support we got to close the terror gap. You shouldn't be on a watch list to be able to buy a gun. With the boyfriend loophole and all these things, but ultimately it comes down to money and politics. The deviation here, though, is the dark money is the real problem. What the NRA does is, yes, they'll cut their PAC check for a member of Congress. I worked for a Colorado senator that was attacked constantly by the NRA. It wasn't the $5,000 check to his opponent that was the issue. It was the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they would put into dark money super PACs attacking him on every issue under the sun. So I would hope that in this campaign we can all take a pledge to not accept dark money, to make sure that everyone in any of their funds that they receive or any outside organizations that support that are fully transparent. Because that's what the NRA does, is they create these pop-up organizations to challenge candidates and attack candidates. And what that does is it creates a fear. It creates a fear on the Republican side, and unfortunately creates fear on the Democratic side to really deal with these issues head on.
I'm a father of a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I love my 2 boys more than anything in the world, and my greatest fear is that another Sandy Hook can happen. Every morning, even though I'm campaigning, I take my kids to school. But in the back of my mind, I wonder, could it happen? And this is the only country in the world where you and I actually have to consider that possibility, because we have lost our senses when it comes to gun control. Now, I'm qualified as a sharpshooter with an M4. I'm qualified with a Beretta as well. I know what these weapons of war can do, and they have no place in our streets. So I will support a ban on assault weapons. I will support all of these measures that these individuals have stated. And I'll say to anyone out there, if you think that you need to fire an assault weapon, I will point you to a recruiter's office. Join me in the military.
So as a law enforcement officer and dealing with this on a daily basis, I would say one of the first things that I would support is national reciprocity. The reality is a police officer is not going to be able to protect you in a situation that develops right in front of you. And in fact, it's going to rely upon yourself to be able to protect yourself. We come in afterwards. And that's the problem in America today. It's not the law-abiding gun owners that are causing problems. It's criminals that, believe it or not, would get their hands on guns either way. So the reality is, the Second Amendment was created not just for people to be able to defend themselves, but in fact to be able to defend themselves against their own government. Everywhere you look in the world today that has a tyrant as a leader, none of them have strict gun laws actually, they don't have guns. If you look at the cities with the strictest gun laws in the nation, they have the most gun violence. Why is that? It's not because we need more gun laws, it's because we need responsible residents.
All right, so depending on the source that you listen to, we have somewhere between 325 and 650 million guns in this country. Okay? That is Pandora's box. It's open, all right? You're not going to keep those guns out of people's hands if they want to hurt people, unfortunately. In terms of mass shootings, we have A plus B equals C, it's math. A is that number of guns, which is an insane amount of guns, and I wish we could undo it, but we can't. We have to live in the world as it is. B is our lack of mental health infrastructure, which was defunded in the 80s by Ronald Reagan. Those two things together caused the mass shootings. If we could get rid of one of those two, if we could fix one of those two, we could fix mass shootings. Unfortunately, it seems like we're going to have to do it through the mental health care end. And that's the way I think that we can handle that. In terms of everything else, we're talking about mostly suicides and homicides, and that's all socioeconomics. If you look at the numbers from Brazil or any country with worse socioeconomics, it's worse there.
Yeah, on the issue of gun control, yeah, I'm also for some of these things that talk about the bump stocks. Yeah, that was a no-brainer. I saw those years ago back in Indiana. I'm a gun owner now. I've always been. I've had one when I was 11 years old. I never saw all these mass shootings back in the 60s and 70s. We were making some progress in this country. If anybody remembers the hippie movement, I moved to California and turned into a Democrat expecting to have a loving place to hang out and have fun. With this Democrat Party today, I don't see it. The kid that yelled at me, called me a racist, he didn't even read my website about reparations for Native Americans. Who else is talking about that up here? Reparations for African Americans who trace their ancestry to slavery. I haven't heard that for 40 years. We are too wound up. And the police are shooting unarmed kids when they have a plastic gun in their backyard. It's crazy.
Okay, Gilbert, we'll begin with you. Technology will replace thousands of jobs in this district. What legislative actions do you advocate to assist displaced workers?
You know, after I got out of the Navy, I went to go work for Frito-Lay at their manufacturing plant out in Rancho Cucamonga. And I saw this take place in that factory. They used to have people that would actually grab the bags off the line and pack them into the boxes before they shipped them out. While I was still there, they started the transformation to automation, where robots started to replace the packers. And now, what started in one line is now at that plant, is all the packers have all been replaced and the lines are all automated. We need to support education for these displaced workers, right? To retrain them, to get them out, to help them find careers. And it's really got to start, though, too, at the kids that are in school right now in our high schools and earlier. We need to teach them about technology. That should be standard curriculum in the schools. Every kid should be able and learn to code in every school in America so that they're prepared to go into a workforce where technology is there. So, thank you very much.
Automation is certainly a threat. We have to be ready to deal with it. We're not really sure at this point. Automation will always create more jobs than it gets rid of, but just in different areas, or if in fact the total amount of work will decrease. We have to be ready for both alternatives. And the way to be ready is first, have a comprehensive retraining program that the federal government funds so that people have skill-based educational opportunities. So if their job is eliminated by automation, they can be retrained. There is a federal program now to do exactly that, but it's well underfunded and the rules are very strict. But we also need to rethink the structure of work in this country. Do we need to still have a 40-hour work week, 2 weeks vacation, and an 8-hour day? You know, there was a time when it was a 50-hour work week and no vacation time. And the time may come when we have to say that maybe a 35-hour work week, which is what they have now already in the Netherlands and some other European countries. So we have to be ready to retrain and rethink in order to be ready for the threat of automation.
Thank you.
So automation is one of the greatest disruptors that we're going to have in our life, way of life. You know, you can go to the movies now, and I used to tear tickets at the movie theater in La Habra, and you go to a machine now and get your tickets. You know, you go to the grocery store, you can check out your groceries yourself. Cars are going to start driving themselves. I went to that Tesla plant, and I saw those machines, almost like a Transformer movie, building the cars themselves, but only at the end of the line you have the workers screwing the tires. Things are changing fast. Our government's way behind on this issue. And so we're going to need to make sure workers are trained for the future jobs, but we're also going to need to make sure we have a response. This is fundamentally why I support Medicare for all. Because if your job has been displaced, the last thing you should need to worry about is your health care and your family's health care. You gotta be able to have a chance to get back up on your feet. Maybe you start that small business you always wanted to start. Maybe you find a new skill, a new job. But we have to make sure that we have an opportunity for people to be able to transition as well as train for those new jobs, because it's changing fast. It's going to change faster than our government can respond.
We're living in a very exciting time. With Google, you can find anything. With Facebook, you can find anyone. With Amazon, you can buy anything you want. But we can't be so enamored with all of the new technological advances that we don't take a harder look at what's being displaced. An example would be Uber and these sharing economy companies, and how they're trying to classify all their workers as 1099 contractors to avoid paying them benefits. We cannot lose sight that people are being displaced and that government has a role in making sure that even if there are technological advances, workers are being taken advantage of. And one thing we have to do is fully fund public education. That is the key, because we have to provide avenues through which people can be retrained. And I do believe that for every new automation that happens, there's something on the back end that a human will still need to do. But if we allow Betsy DeVos to funnel all of her money into vouchers and private schools and defund public education, we're never going to create the infrastructure we need to retrain our society.
So I actually think that we can thank the Democratic Party in California for the acceleration of that phenomenon. By raising minimum wage, by throwing on ridiculous regulation over regulation, what do? You replace people with automated robots, with kiosks. You go to the bank, you can go to the kiosk, it's easier to go to the teller. Fast food places are starting to throw in these kiosks as well that can serve you your food. Why? Because businesses need to compete and they need to turn a profit. Well, if we continue to burden them with all these regulations and continue to attack them in the way that they've been attacked in California, that's exactly the result that you're going to get. Realistically, we need to change the way that we look at our educational system. We need to focus greatly on STEM and develop the next generation of people that are actually servicing these machines. There's going to be opportunity for growth. But if we continue to hammer regulation and we continue to take the progressive policies that we have in California, you're going to see a very negative consequence for people who are actually going to be put out of jobs and have nowhere to turn. California is replacing jobs at a higher rate with low-paying jobs than with high-paying jobs.
All right, so over the course of time, we're going to end up with a lot more automation. We're going to end up with robots fixing the robots as time goes on. Economics, the economies only run when money moves. Money has to move. So the more automation you get, the more money you get concentrated in a few hands at the top, because they're the ones that own the companies. And all the workers get displaced. They don't have any money to spend in the economy. Over the next probably 10 years, we're going to have to be exploring something called universal basic income. It's going to be an amount of money that people get to survive, that they can live on, and then you can get more if you work or if you do something, of a monetary value afterward. But this is not going to stop. It's not a matter of companies turning a profit. It's about turning more profit. It's always about more profit, more profit, more profit. So it doesn't matter how cheap the labor is. They're going to displace you.
Well, automation always makes us more productive, which is a good thing. There's two choices. You use machinery to do this work for us and be trained on how to use it, or you open the borders up again and you let people come in and do it. We've got to make a choice here. With this 40-hour week, I agree. We need to start moving it down. We need to get it down to 35 or possibly 32 hours, but we got to get the wages up at the same time. And you can't do that with too much of an inflow of cheap labor coming in. It just won't happen. My views, you may think I sound racist, my views are union. And those are black people that got hurt out in the Midwest. You want to go up to Detroit? Nobody talks about that. It wasn't all white people got laid off. Go to Detroit, go to St. Louis, go to Indianapolis, Louisville, anywhere like that. They were making up over probably 15–20% of those factory jobs that were union, well-paying jobs.
As automation comes in, we need to make sure that everyone is ready to take on the jobs of tomorrow. And that's why education is innately important for us to tackle this problem. And I have a plan for this right here on my website at philforhouse.com. It's called the HOPE Act. It provides tuition-free community college and certificate programs and trades programs without raising federal taxes. So this is a bipartisan way to actually get more educational opportunities for students just out of high school and those for retraining as well without raising federal taxes. It just cuts out waste. So I encourage you to check that out on my website so you can read more about it. And while we're talking about that, also we can reduce the cost of some of our basic necessities. I believe in Medicare for all. Absolutely. If healthcare costs are brought down, we're not going to be paying as much for that. And we need to make sure housing is affordable as well. That's been outpacing so much lately. We need to have more affordable housing.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our final question for the question and answer period. Now, before we give these candidates a round of applause, you have to understand these questions came from you. There's nothing given to them.
Well, thank you all for coming.
I'll take this one. Yeah, I'll take this one. All right. Thank you very much. Again, Phil Janowitz here. Thank you all for coming and listening to everyone here tonight. You have a choice come June in the primary. And the real choice is, who represents us? Who represents us? We know that all politics is local. And that's why I've been endorsed by over a dozen local elected officials here in our area. And recently just endorsed by State Senator Connie Leva, head of the Women's Caucus. I was as her special guest on Monday, actually, when they passed State Resolution 72 to commemorate Roe v. Wade. I was very proud to be on the Senate floor for that. So we've seen the local leaders because they've all spoken, and they're behind me in this. And you can ask Josh Newman in his recall attempt against him, his phony recall attempt. Who's actually out there walking for him? Who's blocking signatures? Who's going door to door alongside our state senator? That's not my race, that's our race. So I'm out there, boots on the ground, doing the work, so I hope you can join me while we're going to do all this work together for this seat. Thank you.
I want you all to look at my website tonight, tedrusk.com. I want you to watch a couple movies. I want you to watch Big Fish. I'm the guy that says, I'll go talk to the giant. I want you to watch Idiocracy, because I think that's kind of where we're headed. Somebody must have watched that before. Look, read Donna Brazil's book called Hacks, about the DNC. The DNC fired the first shot at me. They cut me out of the debates there in Orange County, even though I'm a Democrat, been a Democrat for probably 17 years. So check my website. Republicans and independents out there, I want your vote, because I'm not sure I can count on all the Democrats here. You guys are better to have a Democrat who wants to deal with Trump than you are to elect a Republican. Or, sorry Steve, but an independent too. Take a Democrat that wants to deal with Trump today, get some green cards, stop that war, bring our jobs back, all the things he's talked about.
All right, so I know I might sound angry, it's because I am. So I think it's appropriate. This country has so much potential, and it's scuttled and it's stuffed at every corner by the two parties that control our government, both of them. All right, they vote together to extend the warfare, to extend mass surveillance. This is something they both do. They both do it. If you guys want something to actually change, you got to change who you're voting for. You can't just keep replacing Democrats with Republicans. I am change. I'm here. All you have to do is show up on June 5th and vote for me.
Thank you again to everyone for coming out tonight. One of the biggest problems with politicians is, they'll sit up here in front of you and they'll tell you a million things, but once they get to Washington or Sacramento or wherever it is they're going, they completely forget what they promised. And they turn around and they serve special interest. Well, as a police officer, not only was I willing to risk my life for people that I knew and cared about, but I was willing to do it for people that I had never met. And I was glad to do it because I knew that's what the basis of this country is on. It's based on the fact that people are willing to love and work for each other. And as a council member, I voted against things and I stood for what I promised to the detriment of my own political career, because I don't care about politics. I care about the promise that I make to people, to you. And that's what I hope to do in Washington as well. If we keep sending the same people there, we're going to keep getting the same results. We need new blood in Washington. We need to get rid of the rhinos, and we need to start working for the American people once again. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and all the candidates who chose to appear here today, especially Andrew being the lone Republican. Thank you for being here. And it's my hope that in the future we're going to see a more diverse group of candidates. Our country isn't going to move forward if we're not fully represented, and I hope that we'll have more women who will be running for office. And I also hope that all of you realize that real power lies in local politics. Run for school board, run for water board, run for city council. Congress is very dysfunctional. We need to send people there to fix that. But I know as a school board member that you can make great change, positive change, and really impact people's lives when you're on the school board. It's not as glamorous, but you get things done. And so I urge all of you to think hard. You're here because you love our country, you love our civics, but I want you to get involved as well. And I hope that you will consider supporting me as well, because I believe that I have the best chance at flipping this district. If you like the status quo, continue. If not, I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, women voters, and thank you all of you for coming here and sitting in traffic and coming for 2 hours of Q&A. You know, I'm not angry, I'm hopeful. And I'm hopeful because you look in this room, we had a positive dialogue about the real challenges we're facing as a community and as a country. And those challenges are real. And what we need right now are folks who can do the job on day one. I was a former chief of staff in Congress. I know where the bathroom is. I know how to fight to stop these guys and the bad things, but I also know how we need to push forward a progressive agenda. I worked in the federal administration. I know how to get the money back to our community. And Royce wasn't doing that. He forgot about us. We need a representative that knows how to get the job done, but also is rooted in us. Because we need to make sure that we're getting that representation. We're making sure that all of our voices are rising in this. And the way we're going to flip this seat and the way we're going to bring our community together really comes down to things like this, in people's living rooms, in auditoriums, and just door-to-door talking to each other and figuring out how are we going to move forward. So Sam Jamal, my website, samorcongress.com. Look forward to having more conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, the immigrants, the sons of immigrants, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all of you in this audience, we have built a country with the highest level of economic prosperity in the world, combined with the highest level of personal freedom. I want to use my life experience as a teacher and an international businessman to maintain those twin peaks that we've reached. I don't want that to disappear. And so I want to leave you with a very positive thought. I want to quote maybe the greatest president in our history, Abe Lincoln. And I want to appeal to the same thing that Abe Lincoln appealed to. I want you to go home and think about the direction of this country. And I want to appeal